I'm Ed. Well, everybody likes to do film transfers, I'm sure. I know I do, and I enjoy it tremendously. But you'll also find out that there's all flavors of film transfers. Some will shoot it on the wall and they're happy with that, and others will use an aerial lens, which is okay. It's the next step, but of course the frame scanner is the best. And here we're using the Universal Retro by Movie Stuff, and I found it to be a quantum leap in getting a good image. And the very first thing you have to make sure is you get as good an image as possible, because otherwise you're working against bad imagery, which is impossible to end up with something really good. So if you start with something decent, you can polish it up and be amazed what you can do with it, especially once you bring it into your computer system and you know how to manipulate it to get the most out of it and to optimize it, because you got to remember you are going from an analog film to digital and the way it's going to be displayed. So you have to optimize all the factors that you have at your disposal, and we're going to go through that video, and hopefully it'll help somebody out with this. Well, let's get started.
So it looks a little bit different, but it's all in all, it's pretty much the same. So we're going to just hit start down here. And now you'll be able to see what we're capturing, which is right over here on the screen. Stop the capture. And it's going to ask us how we want to save that. We could put a thumbnail in that we want, whatever it is. And that'll be automatically retro scan 01. And we just say OK, and there it shows up. So now we're going to create a movie out of that. Now the program I use for editing happens to be Edius by Grass Valley. Anyone could use almost anything they want. It's only a matter of choice. When looking to import your footage, it'll always end up in RetroScan exports. So let's go ahead and double click that. And now you'll see up on top here, I have it listed as RetroScan. We can just go up to RetroScan, open that up, and there it is. So now we're going to import that into our editing program, which I have running behind it right now. So just double click it, and same. They have a bin, they have a timeline, and they have a viewing window. So we can just take that and just drop it right down on our line, and pretty much it. There it is. And now you can see what the image looks like. And if we take this image and we start thumbing through it, you're going to see that it's going to have like a double ghosting around the moving edges over in here. And maybe I can get you a little bit closer to it to see it. There you go. And so there is a way to get rid of it, like I mentioned into the other video. In the case of Edius, they call it frame blending. Nearest neighbor, frame blending. There's different names, but in any case, in the nearest neighbor dialog, which is what I'm dealing with here, this is what I'll click on. So you're going to see now when I click on that, you're going to see that go away, and you can see the difference right away on that. Without the next neighbor, or without unchecking frame blending, this is what you'll get. You click on it or check it, and you're going to see it clears it right up. And that will give you a much better image. As you can see, the edges stay nice and sharp. Now, as you know, film has a tendency of having a lot of jitter. And one way to eliminate that jitter is to incorporate stabilization. Stabilization has got a lot of negative problems, and that is in horizontal movements and vertical movements. Sometimes you see the stabilization fighting against it, so you have to be a little careful when you use that. Now here's a stabilizer here, And all I do is basically drop that down. Now when you drop that down, you're going to notice all stabilizations have a tendency of making the image a little bigger, because it's going to pretty much want to move that framing all around the center point so that it keeps things smooth looking. So we're going to drop that down, and you're going to see, okay, we're going to be analyzing first. Now you're going to see this part here, which is this, and you always want to make sure that you scan so that you have all your edges shown a little bit to compensate for the fact that this image is going to be zoomed in a little bit, and you don't want to lose the edges. So we're compensating for that right up front. And we just have to give it a minute to analyze that and create the stabilization. Now you can see where the stabilization has absolutely made this bigger, and we're right on the edge, which is great. We haven't lost much. Well, actually we haven't lost any, because you can still see the frame down here. We have a little piece of it up on top. But once again, the stabilization will zoom in, so you want to make sure that you compensate when you do your transfer to keep all your edges inside so you can see them, so you don't lose any content. And if I uncheck the stabilizer, you're going to see where we started. That's where we started, and that's where we are. But you're going to see now, by unchecking it, you see a little bit of jitter in there. You can see that little bit of jitter. Now as we put that stabilizer on, it's going to zoom it in a little bit, but you're going to see that it's absolutely steady as a rock. So now we got rid of a lot of inherent jitter in the frame, which is all I'm after. Not so much the user jitter as much as the frame jitter. So you want to make sure that you keep the stabilizer toned down quite a bit, because otherwise, once again, it's going to want to fight against the moving of the camera, and you don't want to see too much of that. And now that we did that, what we're going to want to do is to add a little bit of color correction to it and fix the colors on that. So the best way to do that, I like to do in 2 steps. I like to get a balance first, then from there I can use my color corrector. But first we'll use the vector scope and waveform monitor, and that way we'll see exactly where we are. And that's down here. And you can see that we have enough brightness. That's not an issue. But our colors are shifted off, and it's almost non-existent. If it was non-existent, we would end up with just basically a dot in the center. And so you can see that we do have a little bit of an issue going on. So we're going to go ahead and open up our color corrector, and we'll move it down here so it's a little easier to see. What we need to do is get this down towards the center more. So here's our x-axis, the red, cayenne, and yellow-blue axis. So what we want to do is just bring that down a little bit, and bring that over a little bit, and just down a little bit more. Okay. And now what we want to do is improve the chroma on it. So we're just going to bring that up. We're going to just pump it up a little on the heavy side, but that's okay. And I like to bring the brightness down just a little bit, because it's really topping off up here, and it'll help a little bit in the appearance of it. And so we don't want to oversaturate, but we want to get a good color. Now you can see that the difference from where we started and where we are, that looks a little bit better. You can see the greens are popping out now. From being bluish looking, or kind of a yucky gray. That's where we corrected it to. You can see the bushes back there, and the people's faces look a little nicer and richer. It just looks a little nicer. But now what we want to do is get rid of that bluish tinge that we really want to have that eliminated, especially in the black areas where the hair is, and back in here where we have the darkened areas. So we can do that. That's let me just get rid of this here and say okay. We're going to verify that's what we want. So we're just going to go down here to the dialog saying okay. And now what we want to do is bring our other effect in this case the 3-wheel correction. I like that. I love that thing. So we're going to bring that down, And we'll drop that right on the line down here. And we'll open that up. And here's our 3-wheel correctors. And now we'll see what we do with the sections that look a little bit bluish that really shouldn't be. Here's a good example. It's going to be this garb is very, very blue tinted. We don't like that. So we're going to fix our black balance on that and click on it. There. Now we're coming up to pretty close where we want to be. And then what we want to do is improve the depth of our color. And the best way to do that is go into our gray balance. And you find something a little on the grayish side, and you want to have that, let's see, pick something gray. Here's something gray right there, which is the roof. I don't know, there, right there. Look at that, how nice that's starting to look. And now what we can do on our 3-wheel is to get the saturation up just a little bit more contrast on it. And now it's starting to really, really pop. And we can say okay on that. And what we could even do, I'm going to go back in there, maybe hit a little white balance on that. There we go. There. So now the whites are truly white. And so now you can see we have a nice, nice image. And you might want to see where we started. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just put another timeline right down on it so we can do a split screen to see where we started and where we are right now. So we're just going to add a track to it. And we're going to take our original, we're going to get rid of this up here. Go back to our bin. We're going to drop the original right down on top of that. But what we want to do is expand it so we can see the two lines. And so what we'll do is we're going to do an A-B comparison. So we're going to just actually strike that. You can see the differences now, where we started, where we're ending. Let me get a nice tight shot of that so you can see it. Again, you can see it's kind of obvious what we've done to it. We've turned it from blue, which is how it got transferred, because that's just what some of the film will turn into. And we're able to pull out colors, skin tones, get our blacks truly black, and get nice contrast. The reds are showing up beautifully now. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? And the greens, oh, the greens just pop like crazy. And so now we have a beautiful image as opposed to this. And so we're going to say, okay, now there's one more thing that we want to get rid of. And that is, and it's hard to show on the video, but it makes a very, very, very big difference. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that take a lot of computer time. And so I'm going to show you that in a second here. Now this is one of those things that does take a lot of time, and that is this neat filter. That is actually the name of it, neat. And it does take a lot of processing. So we're going to take the neat and we're going to drop that down on our timeline. And what that does is it gets rid of the frame grain or the film grain. And it does it by sampling. However, it's gruelingly slow, highly dependent on your processor. And so what we're going to do is we're going to double click on that, and it's going to open the neat program. There we go, right there. And I'm going to move this over and see if we can find a section. We have to find a section that doesn't have a lot of extraneous information in it, but just background grain. And so I found a little section of it down here. As you can see the film grain. And so what I'm going to do is take a sample of this film grain. Okay, and it shows you how much noise you have. So we're going to profile that. And so we go up to profile, and we say, yep, that's what we want to do. There. So now you can see how nice that looks. Without it, you're going to see that's our film grain. With the neat, you can see how it just eliminated it. Now what we want to do is, now that we got rid of most of the worst part of the grain, we want to bring in more sharpness to it. So that's the next step, is to improve the sharpness of your, now that we got rid of the noise part of it. So now we can get more detail out of what we have in there by just bumping that up. And now we have a nice sharp detail without noise. And we have a great image. Now, of course, you say, well, what about all these edges with the holes and things? Well, we got to get rid of that, of course. So all we have to do there is to say, well, let's just crop that out. So we're just going to crop that out. Here it is. Of course, it's going to show you prior to the coloring, but that's okay. So we're just going to back that away here and back it over to the right. And you come right up to that edge. Same thing with the top and bottom. Top, bottom. And we can expand it to fill the frame properly. Don't overdo it, because if you go outside of the usable space, then the viewer is going to lose that image on their television. This is a viewing area, right down to this line here. And I like to play just slightly inside that. And you can see it. You say, okay. So there it is. Now we got nice sharp edges. And we got an image that looks absolutely stellar. Now, of course, if you try to play this out, your computer's going to stutter a little bit, only because the neat program is so intense that it's trying to also do that work. And so the best thing to do is to create a file of what you have, then it'll play smooth. Here we are creating our file so that we could play it out, and you'll see how nice it looks when we're finished. But once again, it does take a while with the neat, and this is a very short clip. It's under 15 seconds, so you can see how long it takes. And there we go, we have our file. Now you might want to see what that looks like playing out from the beginning of the clip. So we start it there, and we're going to play it right out. You can see how nice that looks. It looks like it was just shot this afternoon. Beautiful colors, vibrant, clean. I like to just add a little bit of candy to it, and that is you add a little bit of music, and it just kind of brings it to life. Okay, now I just dropped some music down on the line down there, as you can see it, and you'll see how it's going to change the mood when I play that out. And you can see nice sharp edges, how nice that looks. Okay, well, that was only a 15-second clip, but you can see how much work there is in putting together the films to make them look really good, to make the colors pop, give it a lot of stabilization, get rid of the ragged edges, get rid of the holes, of course, and be able to do the other editing issues, such as broken frames, or if people had spliced together bad splices, burn marks. We were able to take care of all that into editing. Of course, it does take time, but if you want to give people the best product that no one can compete with, this is the best type of product to give them. Now you can scan in 2K, but I have not found a big advantage to it, and it does slow the system down significantly. I've been staying in the high definition, and I found for 8mm film, that works wonderful. You can bump it up to the 2K if you need to, say if you're doing the 16mm or if you're doing slides, that would be fine. But for 8mm Super 8, I don't see any advantage except just slowing the process down, especially if you're going to be using filters like the Neat filter. That is gruelingly slow, but it does help a tremendous amount in getting your production looking great. Well, I hope that has been a good help to you. If you have any questions, feel free to send them along. I'll be glad to answer anything I can. And thank goodness we have the retro scan, and that does a fantastic job because it all starts with having a good solid scan and making sure your image quality is as sharp as possible. Get that focus right in line because you can't fix the focus issues later on. So make sure that that's zoomed in right where you need it to be. It does take a little bit of time and effort, but it's well worth it, especially when you see the end results of giving people a great, great product. Well, once again, it's been a pleasure, and I hope everyone's really enjoyed this. Thank you.